Sheikh Armia is currently the spokesperson for the National Chief Imam of Ghana, and he serves on the Chief Imam's Advisory Board. He also served on the board of Ghana Academy of Muslim Professionals, GAMP. He's also the representative of the National Chief Imam on the National Peace Council of Ghana, as well as being the principal Imam of the Dar es Salaam Mosque in Accra, located at the airport residential area. So that is Sheikh Armia Sharp. Sheikh, you are welcome to this program. Let me move on to our next speaker in the person of Professor Rafat Abdul Hamid. Professor Rafat Abdul Hamid studied for her BA, MA, PhD, in Islamic studies, all from University of Jos in Nigeria, her hometown, her home country. She also has a postgraduate diploma in education from University of Jos too. Presently, she is an associate professor of Islamic studies with the University of Abuja, Department of Islamic Studies. She is also the program coordinator for Center for Gender Security Studies and Youth Advancement, University of Abuja. Dr. Abdul Hamid is a fellow with the American Council of Learned Societies African Humanities Program, AHP. He's also a member of the Form 1. Form 1 is Federation of Muslim Women Association in Nigeria. A National Education Committee, Form 1 National Publication Committee. You're welcome, Professor Rafat Abdul Hamid.
Hello.
Professor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Very good. You're welcome to this important lectures.
Thank you very much.
Our third speaker is Mr. Mustafa Abdullah Kuyate. Mr. Sheikh Mustafa Abdullah Kuyate is currently a lecturer at the Department of Religious Studies at the Islamic University College, Ghana. His area of teaching and research include comparative Islamic jurisprudence, Kalam, scholastic theology, and Islamic education and dawah. In addition to lecturing, Mr. Kuyate served as a research coordinator at the Department of Religious Studies. He's a trainer for Imamship Training Program and assistant editor of the Journal of Humanities and Social Sciences, all at the Islamic University College, Ghana. Sheikh Kuyate had his MPhil in Religion and Human Values from the University of Cape Coast, Ghana. Sheikh Kuyate, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah. Alhamdulillah, you are welcome.
Thank you, sir.
So we will begin with Sheikh Armia. We are giving him 20 minutes, to give us his submission. After which we will come to Professor Rafat Abdul Hamid. Then we also come to my Sheikh Mustafa Abdullah Kuyate. So Sheikh Armia Shuaib, my Sheikh, if you are there, please begin with us.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let me just say by way of introduction that the COVID-19 pandemic will definitely go down in history as the most terrible experience of the human world of the 21st century. The devastation that has been visited on the human community goes beyond geographical boundaries. And as at now that we speak, I think that the toll of death goes beyond more than 89 million people have been infected as at January 2021. Technology has not succeeded in giving us all the answers to this. And it is my pleasure that I share the Ghanaian experience. In this presentation, the structure and how I want to go is to start by giving a brief reflection on Ghana's response to the COVID-19. And then I will look at the aspect of Islamic doctrines challenged by this pandemic. Then I will also look at the challenges, how we navigated through those challenges. And then we'll look at addressing the vulnerabilities that we experienced during the period of the pandemic. Now, the first experience of Ghana's infection of the COVID-19 virus took place on the 22nd of March, 2020. And by July 13th, the number of confirmed cases has risen to 24,518. As I speak to you now, from the records of the Ghana Health Service, total confirmed cases of the infection is 80,759. We have 73,365 recoveries, and the death, we have 582 deaths. Active cases stands at 6,812. With a new strain, the government is still struggling to contain the new strain of the virus, and hoping that we'll be able to put our hands squarely on it. The government's policy response target first was to limit or stop the importation of the virus into the country. Second is to contain spread of the virus. 3 is to provide adequate care for patients infected with the virus. 4 is to limit the socio-economic impact of virus. And 5, expand or enhance Ghana's domestic capability and deepen self-reliance. And these form the pillars of all the measures that the government in Ghana took to address the issue of the pandemic. But just to give us an idea of the measures that, in my view, affected some of the Islamic observances. So I begin with the measures. Social restrictions. There was a ban on social gathering. There was a ban on social gathering during the period. This includes funerals, weddings, conferences. There was suspension of religious observances and activities. For example, suspension of religious practices, outdoor and congregational devotional activities were all suspended. We even reached a point where there was a complete lockdown. And because of the lockdown, there was a complete vacation of the mosque. Janazah prayers could not be said. It was, even if it was supposed to be said, the number was restricted to 25 people who could meet and see Janazah when a Muslim passes on. We were supposed to engage in private burial ceremonies. You could not get a full congregation to attend to funeral ceremonies. And with all these, then now I can look at the aspect of Islamic doctrine that was affected by these measures and introduced in order to contain the spread of the disease. The first of our doctrines has to do with the daily salat, which is supposed to be performed in the masjid. So it was affected in this way that social distances caused as contrary to the normal practice where we'll have the saf or the rows where we stand shoulder to shoulder. Now we're compelled now to separate ourselves in order that we don't get into contact with each other. This is contrary to the accepted normal Islamic practice in the mosque, where the imam will have to ensure that our rows in the mosque are well formatted. Today, that one has suffered some change because of the measures. One other doctrine which also suffered a setback is our Jumu'ah prayer. In fact, during the lockdown, Jumu'ah prayer could not be said in the mosque. We all had to vacate the mosque, leave our mosque empty of devotees. And this is also contrary to normal practice, because Jumu'ah is one of the wajib prayers that every Friday we needed to meet in the mosque. This was affected by the pandemic. In Ramadan, we could not perform our Taraweeh prayers. Normal Taraweeh prayers, which is one of the highly recommended, activities in Ramadan, was suspended. We could not do so. Indeed, in our part of the country, a regular tafsir, that the Quranic interpretation, is run by leading Muslim scholars, where Muslims will take advantage to come and learn more about their religion. Because of the pandemic, we could not organize this. Iftar dinners, which is a social platform where in Ramadan we bring people of different social status to come together and share and break bread together and socialize. This also could not take place in Ramadan. Now, Hajj was suspended. During the period, Hajj was suspended. As I speak to you now, I do not know whether, as the Hajj one is approaching, we'll be able to go on Hajj. But the 2020 Hajj was suspended. We could not go on Hajj. It means that the Hajj doctrine was affected by the pandemic. Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha could not be organized as normal. So in Ghana, for example, we have to perform the Eid al-Adha through a virtual means. The National Chief Imam had to be given a platform at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and all other Muslims had to remain and pray at their homes. No one was given the opportunity to come in outdoor celebration to say the Eid al-Fitr and the Eid al-Adha. These are the dimensions of the Islamic doctrines that were affected. How did we navigate these difficulties? Now, to do this, the first thing we have to do is to now have a look at the Islamic jurisprudence and the penal principles of the Sharia to allow us to be able to navigate. So, for example, we considered the COVID-19 protective measures, preventive measures, to fall within the scope of Islamic principles that are intended to protect life. And so that we look at the superiority of the principle to protect life as against going into the mosque to say our prayer. So we brought in that. Secondly, we also look at the Islamic principle of moderation and flexibility. In other words, I look at the principle of necessity that allow us to violate something that has been made prohibited. Circumstance to violate a certain prohibition does not cause a sin. So we looked at that flexibility and moderation of Islamic principles. We also looked at the respect for people placed in authority. So we have a government that has been put in place, and to protect the citizens, government has imposed certain restrictions on us. So we looked at that from the angle of the Quran itself, where Allah says, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ, obey Allah and His apostle and those placed in positions of authority. So we looked at that one also. And these are the things that give us the framework within which we were able to apply the measures of the COVID-19 preventive methodologies in order that we are able to still respect the preventive measures and still be able to also practice our religion. And to do so, what we did was to embark upon education and advocacy. we make the effective use of the media, and the social media. In fact, the traditional media and the social media was what we used effectively to engage in education and sensitization about the nature of the virus itself, mode of transmission, and the preventive measures, including improved sanitation, hand washing, use of sanitizers. These are things that we have been given as measures, and so we needed to educate the larger Muslim populace to understand and apply them in their lives, and that was quite effective. But the other platform that was effectively used was the minbar, the pulpit, effectively, which we use wherever it was possible for an imam to come out. But the minbar could not be used at this point because the Juma Salat itself had been suspended. And so we had to make effective use of the social media and other mass media channels that was at our disposal. So personally, I was very frequent on the television, on the radio, in order to educate the Muslims on the Islamic application of the preventive measures that have been imposed by the government. That also came up, the issue of the vulnerabilities of those infected, and vulnerabilities in terms of those who have to lose their jobs. And so therefore, like the question came up, we looked at how to mobilize resources, and provide care and support to those who have fallen victims to the pandemic, and also those who, because of the measures, have to lose their jobs or were limited in the way that they were able to really get their daily livelihood. We also managed to raise funds in order to respond to government's attempt to establish COVID-19 pandemic fund, so that government is able to extend its support to those who have fallen victim to the pandemic. So, for example, we were able to raise an amount of more than 100,000 Ghana cedis to support government to be able to address these issues. We also embark upon education and sensitization of the wealthy within the Muslim community in order to get them to give attention to the vulnerable members of their communities. We may not be able to reach all over the places. So what we did was to send messages through the media to the well-to-do and the affluent of society to be able to extend some support to the vulnerable, the most vulnerable, i.e. the poor of the society and those who have been infected. And so therefore they needed some care. We also have to raise money and reach out to care centers where some of those who have been infected are being given care. And all this we were doing so in support of what the government is already doing. And so one of the concepts in Islam that we emphasized as channels through which we could really raise this money and reach out to the vulnerable was to now expand our understanding of sadaqah. We looked at sadaqah more as a means of regular mobilization of funds. As opposed to zakah, we look at sadaqah as a means that generate funds and reach out members of society within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. But we also raised a consciousness for those who qualify to give out the zakat, this time to vary and to have a new approach of giving out the zakat. Now we will now call on them to realize, give attention to the very needy of society who is in dire need of greater support within the COVID-19 pandemic era. And that was also fantastic. And we had many of the affluent members of society who were able to give their zakat to such people through the concept of zakat. The other issue, which is the lesson that we learned in terms of rethinking of Islamic theology in the face of the pandemic. There are lessons that we have learned, and I think that it's important that we bring also that one to the fore. One of the lessons that we have learned during the period is the opportunity to harmonize between science and faith. The opportunity to harmonize between science and faith, because the pandemic, we looked at the pandemic itself as something that is beyond our control. So diseases, we say Allah is the one who causes diseases, and Allah is the one also who heals. So we turn our attention to God and prayed. But in the same vein, we also explored our understanding of using science as a means of protecting ourselves. So we respected the revelations that were coming through scientific research as a means by which we were able to respond effectively to the pandemic. I mean, for example, we were able to even educate our president, and our president was able to make a reference to the Islamic concept of quarantine, which is a scientific method. Quarantine in the sense that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is quoted to have indicated that whenever there is a spread of a pandemic, those who are at the affected place should remain restricted over there. They should not leave the place. And those who are at safe place should not also move to the affected place. This means that it's a very practical approach, a scientific approach, by which we contain the spread of the disease. And for me, it is that which has brought to us the need for us to harmonize between scientific research and discovery and the application of our faith. And that's for me one of the very great lessons. But that we also now look at the application of the Islamic principles of jurisprudence in a changing world. In other words, as opposed to the classical rulings on some of the Islamic doctrines and practices, in a dynamic world, we have now come to understand that the Islamic jurisprudence is not static, it's dynamic, and it can be used to solve problems with circumstances. And that indeed has applied for us effectively. For example, it was possible for us to do social distancing in the mosques, as opposed to the normal practice where we would have stood in our rows shoulder to shoulder. Now it was possible for us to stand distant away from each other as we were saying our prayers. Now every person was coming with his own personal prayer rack into the mosque, as opposed to the original times where all the time you found mats that are spread in the mosques. This also was part of the rethinking of the Islamic rules of jurisprudence in the context of the changes that we are experiencing in our times. I conclude on the note that, all right, the need for us to re-examine the classical Quranic interpretations and the rules of jurisprudence to meet the demands of our changing times. And I think that that is one of the lessons that we have derived from all that has taken place in Ghana during the era of the pandemic. Thank you so much, and hope that some other questions could come up, and then we'll answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chef, for this wonderful submission. I will now call on Professor Rafatu Abdul Hamid to give her submission.
In Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Almighty Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praises are due to you, O God, for giving us this opportunity to be here and to make some contributions. Let me also appreciate the Sane Institute for giving me this honor to say a little bit of what I know from the point of view of Islam concerning COVID-19. My brothers and sisters, we are all aware of the challenges that COVID-19, posted on us. But permit me to state here that pandemic or the COVID-19 is not the first we have in history. It is recorded in the history that there are three major or many other pandemics, such as the plague of Justinian in the mid-16th century, the Black Death in the mid-14th century, and the Bombay plague in the late 19th century. Apart from these pandemics, we also have experienced pandemic from the point of view of Islamic history during the time of one of the Khulafa Rashidun, I mean the four caliphs of Islam, the pious caliphs, and in particular during the period of Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph of Islam. The pandemic occurred in a place around Palestine. And then we also have learned through history that many companions died during that period of the pandemic. We also have seen how the effort made by the second caliph of Islam, that was Umar ibn al-Khattab, in order to curb that pandemic. What they did as at that time was those that were in that geographical area were not allowed to leave that place, and those that are outside that area of the pandemic were not allowed to come. So you can see that in Islam, we have a basis, or what we can say about the origin, that pandemic is not new as far as Islam is concerned. My sisters and brothers, I want to let you also know that my areas of concentration I will look at some aspect of Islamic doctrines or teachings that is mostly challenged during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm going to also look at how the Muslims, approach or navigate these challenges. I'm also going to talk to us about resources that Islam has provided as regards the pandemic, and then maybe look at some of the jurisprudence position or Sharia provision as far as the pandemic is concerned. I hope that the time will permit me to look at these issues. In fact, during the COVID-19 period, we have seen the challenges that has really faced the Muslims, especially in Nigeria. During this period of confinement, especially during the early period of the pandemic, we have seen that effort made by the government as well as medical practitioners has affected some of our doctrines. Take, for example, the issue of congregational prayer, especially the Jumat service, which is usually conducted in the mosque. It is compulsory on every Muslim, especially the male gender, to perform the Jumat service every Friday. So during this period of pandemic, the Muslims were not allowed to perform their congregational prayers, especially and also the Jumat prayer. This was a big challenge or a big blow to the Muslim Ummah, especially in Nigeria. So much so that some, disobeyed the rules, disobeyed the directive of the government, and they went ahead and performed their salat until when the government in Nigeria took more serious effort, took more serious method to ensure that they were stopped. The Muslims were not happy, but later they began to realize that what the government is doing as far as stopping them from performing their prayers is in line, because the government is responsible to protect the lives of every citizen in Nigeria. Apart from that, again, we are also aware how the COVID-19 pandemic also affected Hajj and Umrah, that is pilgrimage to Mecca. Many Muslims, especially in Nigeria, have deposited their money. They were not happy when the government, the Saudi, declared that there may be no, performance of Hajj, especially for those outside Saudi Arabia. We also have seen how it has affected the practice of handshaking and hugging. We are all aware that in Islam, it is a righteous, or it's highly encouraged for Muslims, especially for the same gender, to have a handshake and to hug each other, especially when they meet or during congregation or in the mosque, wherever they find themselves. So it is a good deed and it has been encouraged. But with the coming of COVID-19, Muslims were also deprived of that. Muslims were not happy. Visiting the sick person is also a meritorious deed in Islam. This has also been affected by the COVID-19. We also have issue of restricted movement, where every Muslim, every individual, whether a Muslim or non-Muslim, is expected to stay in home. And we all know that it is also another meritorious deed or a good deed or a good practice in Islam that Muslims should visit one another to show love, to show, to socialize. But if the COVID-19 also have restricted that. These are some of the areas where Muslims face challenge, especially when it has to do with their religious practices. And just like I have said, many Muslims at the early stage disobey the rules and they continue with that. But after that, they also came up, to find ways on how to make good use of that period of COVID-19. And they now adopt several methods. And as we all know, in Islam is a complete religion. It has taken care of issues. And that is why even in the Quran, we have found that God has said that there is nothing that the Quran has not mentioned. Even the issue of pandemic, we have that basis in Islam. And so when this period came, Muslims had no option than to look at other, alternatives as to how to navigate into the challenges posed by COVID-19. But then in Nigeria, for instance, Muslims are divided on the issue of even COVID-19 acceptance. There has been a theological debate on the COVID-19 itself. Among some Muslims, there is this belief that COVID-19 is a punishment from God, and that fighting or trying to stop it will be a fruitless effort. Due to our excesses, God decided to punish mankind by creating COVID-19. And so their belief or perception is that Muslims should rely on God and they should not do anything as far as, taking care of themselves, because this is from God. And they also believe that God will protect the righteous people in this period. But for the majority of the Muslims, they believe that COVID-19, even though it is a creation from God, but then it is like a normal disease that Muslims are capable of stopping the spread. And their belief, their argument is that during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, just like I've said, the second caliph of Islam, the Muslims experienced pandemic, and they were able to, curb it by preventing those people who have already been infected with the disease not to join those that are there. And we also have other prophetic traditions, like one of the provisions that these Muslim scholars cited is that the Prophet ﷺ has said that sick camels should not be mixed up with the healthy camels. In other words, they should be separated. And then again, they also have cited the verse, another hadith of the Prophet, where the Prophet ﷺ has also made mention of those people who during any pandemic, they are patient and they said, and if eventually they die in the process, they will be given the position of those who have died as martyrs. So with all this, they were able to convince the majority of the Muslims that COVID-19, even though it's a sign from God, but it is not that it cannot be prevented, because this has happened in the early period of Islam, and they have taken measures in order to see to the curbing of, or the prevention of the spread. So that means that in Islam, even though there are challenges, there are ways to go about them. One important thing that we need to mention here is that although the Muslims have been challenged and they have been found, they have tried to find ways of, approaching this, and especially from the Nigerian experience, there are still those people, even in Nigeria till today, that don't even believe in the existence of COVID-19. Some among them believe that it is the sickness of the political leaders who have amassed the wealth of the country, and that is another punishment from God. Some also believe that it is not any sickness, but maybe a propaganda from the West. So these are some of their views. In any case, just like I've said, the majority of the Muslims believe that it is from God and it can be curbed. And so many of the Muslims during that period of COVID-19, they make good use of that period. Some of them use that period to learn the Quran. Some of them memorize verses of the Quran. Some of them who do not even know anything about Islam, they use that period to learn more about Islam, and they acquired much knowledge. Some also have used that time, that period of COVID-19, to strengthen their family ties, where prior to that, because of the challenges of the time, people do not have time to look at their families. Families were well taken care of. In fact, we have a testimony from women that the COVID-19 had made their husband to stay with them, to take care of them, and even their children. We also have seen increase in pregnancy, especially during the period of that period of COVID-19 among women. Another interesting aspect of the COVID-19, especially to the Muslims, is that many of the Muslims now made good use of the ICT to deliver messages, making fatwas, encouraging one another to become, especially during that period of trial. And also, they also have made good use of that ICT to conduct conferences, seminars, and so on and so on. So many Muslims became well conversant with the use of the ICT, because ICT was almost the only option that we had as at that time. Again, we also have seen that during that period of COVID-19, we have seen that many fatwas, or sermons, khutbah sermons during the Juma prayer were used. So these are some of the ways through which the Muslims, especially in Nigeria, were able to make good use of the period to approach the challenge of COVID-19. Apart from that, again, we have resources. And what I mean by resources here is that those things, provisions readily available for the prevention or for precaution about COVID-19. I have mentioned earlier on about some of the prophetic hadith. There are many hadiths of the prophet that talks about the COVID, that talks about pandemic. So this is one of the major resources we have as far as challenges like COVID-19 and so on. The Prophet ﷺ, just like I've said, he has made mention that staying apart is one of the ways through which the plague can be prevented to a large extent. And also have seen during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, when the plague of Amwas took place, Amr ibn al-As, one of the leading leaders of that time, he took them outside that city to the village or to the outskirts and separated them. All were living apart so that they can. It is mentioned in history that effort made, or that method used, really help in curbing the pandemic as at that time. Again, we have also seen that there are, apart from the prophetic traditions, we have seen from many verses of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made mention to us how we should ensure that we take care of ourselves, especially our life. In one of the verses of the Quran, he said that we should be able to, he wants us not to throw ourselves or use our hand to destroy ourselves. So that means that there are a lot of this, there are a lot of provisions provided in the Quran or in the religion of Islam as far as any plague, especially that of COVID-19, any other disaster or any serious disease. And remember again, the prophet tradition has also have made mention that all the diseases in the world has been provided with a remedy, meaning that the prophet said there is no disease that has no cure except one, and that is old age. In that case, there is no cure. So this and many others shows that the Quran or Islam has made provision as far as any calamity or disease, especially like that of COVID-19 is concerned. Again, apart from the prophetic traditions, which we have so many guidelines or guidance, we also have seen many scholars of jurisprudence. They have written work on COVID-19, on pandemic, and then or any disease, especially that will lead to pandemic. People, scholars like Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and many other people, many other scholars have written. So there are a lot and lot of provisions in Islam or resources in Islam as far as issues concerning the health of the individual is concerned. So what I'm saying here is that apart from that, again, we have also seen that taking care of the sick is also a meritorious deed, and this is also enshrined in Islam. And this is why it has become another major resources when we're talking about challenges of pandemic, just like this of that of COVID-19, that the government of that society can use her resources in ensuring that cure is given to those who are infected. Again, in the area of rethinking of Sharia or rethinking of Islam or on these principles, I would want to say here that there are 5 fundamental principles of Islam, of Sharia, I mean. There are 5 fundamental principles of the Sharia. One of it is protection of the religion, and the second is protection of the life. And we have another one, protection of intellect, protection of the property, and protection of the progeny. So these 5, if we look at it very critically, you will agree with me that it encompasses all aspects of human life. And it has become now the policy. Government policies should be geared towards protecting these 5 fundamental principles, irrespective of that government, whether that government is government of Islam or not, but especially that of Islam. And this is why we have seen that government policies are geared towards saving life, because in one of the verses of the Quran, Allah has said in Quran chapter 5, verse 32, if anyone saved a life, it is as he has saved the life of all mankind. So this alone shows us that not only the government, all stakeholders are entitled to make sure that they have done their bits in order to save life. And then when we look at the issue of COVID-19, by giving us those regulations, those protocols, we are not only saving our lives, but we are also assisting and saving the lives of others. So this shows us that in Islam has made provision, and then there is also opportunity for scholars to go on making ijtihad. But of course, I will emphasize here that scholars must be those who are entitled, those who are qualified, because of course, in our society today, you have seen so many fatwas, and this is why sometimes some Muslims get misled through the fatwa. Just like an example where when I said we saw total disobedience at the initial stage, especially when the Jumat service was prohibited for the Muslim, especially as at that time. So many scholars giving their own fatwa that there is no basis for us not to perform the Jumat service simply because of COVID-19, and their belief is that death is inevitable. And so, because death is inevitable, whoever God has destined to die, he will die. But we have seen also that the Sharia has given us a responsibility, individual responsibility, to take care of our life so that we will not fall victim. And this is why we're focusing in another verse of the Quran, where Allah also warned us in Quran chapter 2, verse 195. Allah wants us not to throw ourselves into destruction, using our own hands to cause destruction, or to destroy our lives. Again, we have also seen that in Islamic jurisprudence, it is very important for us to obey the directives of the government or our leaders. And this is also found, it has a basis in the Quran, Quran chapter 4, verse 59, we have seen where Allah says, "O you who believe, obey Allah and obey the messenger and those in authority." This implies that the government are, they are given this responsibility of taking care of us in all aspects of our lives. And so when we obey them, we give them that total support. And we will see that it is not only in obedience, because when a Muslim obey the authority with good intention, he will be rewarded accordingly. Islam encourages us to also have, personal hygiene. This I must also mention that one interesting aspect of the COVID-19 is the issue of personal hygiene. Muslims have been very conversant with the issue of personal hygiene because Islam encourages personal hygiene. Islam does not like, dirtiness. And that is why we have seen in so many areas in the Quran, like for example, in Quran chapter 74, verse 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and purify your garment, and purify your garment. Scholars have stated that this shows that purity of not only our heart, but even our physical body and the garment we put on must be purified and must be made clean. And then again, we also have seen in Quran chapter 2, verse 2, Allah says, "Inna Allah yuhibbu tawwabina wa yuhibbul mutatahhirin." That is, truly Allah loves those who turn unto him in repentance and love those who purify themselves. So when the issue of COVID-19 came up, Islam has already given us this basis. And so Muslims find it very easy to cope with the issue of personal hygiene as a way of preventing the further spread of COVID-19. Do not also forget that Islam has taught us, before you pray, you need to perform ablution. Islam encourages Muslims, if they want to eat, they must ensure they wash their hands. They should also wash their hands both before and after eating. They should also make sure, as part of their cleanliness of their body, to take care of their teeth, to take care of their entire body, that is by taking their bath regularly, or at least once a week, and so on and so forth. So while these do not completely prevent the spread of, although it does not complete the spread of the disease, but certainly it reduces the risks. And then that is why we are very conversant with that in Islam. So what we are saying here is that this attitude should continue. And then even when we have cases of this nature, we should be able to to imbibe by this. Most of that Islam or our religion have encouraged that. In fact, it is part of the prerequisites of prayer. Before you pray, you need to purify yourself.
Prof, like I said, I hate when I'm listening to or getting this very important information. I hate to stop, but I've been given the mandate to moderate the time, and the time is on our side. So I will urge you to maybe conclude, and then when it comes to the question time, you can.
I will do that conclusion. Thank you very much. So what I'm saying here is that let me just conclude by also encouraging us to, first of all, I try to avoid the spread of fitna, because pandemic is also, we can regard it as a calamity. And how do we spread it? How do we prevent the spread? By obeying the protocols. Let us ensure we wash our hands frequently, we use sanitizer, we also obey the government rules and regulations concerning how to take good care of ourselves. We should not be disobedient to the government. We should also be seen to assist each other, especially that this is the period, a very trying period, where many people have lost their jobs, many people have been infected in one way or the other. Even though we cannot visit them, it is ugly. We have other alternatives, and Muslims should be seen to use that alternative. Giving a phone call, for example, sending text message, WhatsApp, and so on, I think it will go a great deal in order to curb the spread and then make sure that we are on the right track. I want to thank you very much for giving me this ample opportunity to give my little knowledge about COVID-19 and the Muslims, especially in Nigeria. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. Thank you very much, Prof, for this wonderful submission. I will go straight away to look forward to invite my brother Sheikh Mustafa Abdullah Kuyate.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity granted me to have some discussion on the issue of religious observance and pandemics in general, and then more specifically COVID-19 in the Muslim experience. Actually, Islam, as we know, as Muslims, place much emphasis on the well-being of every individual as far as the religion is concerned. The well-being of the personality is what matters as far as Islam is concerned. And so to the extent that tradition from the Holy Prophet is reported to have said there is a sound, Jism Salim, so it's a sound mind in the sound body. Let me just put it in basic terminology. And so issues that have to do with religious observance, whether it has to do with worship, if you are not in the right frame of mind, if you are not protected, there will be no way for which you'll be able to serve God in a proper manner. That's the first issue. And so coming down to the area for which I think I was given to discuss and to look at the perspective of Shiism, I think the Shia world, including Shiites in Ghana, were affected greatly. But looking at the discussion, if I'm to go by what all my colleagues have said, if I might digress a bit, we'll come to realize that I will not give you a specific statistic now, but we'll realize that, in fact, in the Middle East, the Shia world was highly affected due to certain reasons. And one of such reasons, as far as the COVID is concerned, has to do with the amount of celebrations, the amount of occasions that are present within that particular school setup. I think I can count as many as 8 or 9 or 10 different occasions. And for every one of them, it serves an interest for a Shiite. Counting from the first among which is we call the Ashura, which actually marks the death of the grandson of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, Imam Hussein. And to the 40 days after that particular day, we call Arba'in, it means a lot to a Shia Muslim. Because from the day one of the Ashura, Shia Muslims are, encouraged to congregate and deliberate on the issue from the first day to the last to the 10th day, for which we mark the end of the 10th day. That the 10th day is what we call Ashura. But beyond that Ashura, there is what we call the Arba'in, and the Arba'in is what is marked in history as one of the largest human gatherings after Hajj. It is a gathering that takes place in Iraq every year to actually showcase the pain that Muslims went through, as far as, especially Shia Muslims, when they to showcase themselves that they actually felt the pain of what the grandchild of the Holy Prophet Muhammad went through. And so with the emergence of COVID, it actually created an impediment such that it was actually very difficult for Shia in particular to contain. Beyond that, one other issue has to do with what we call in Shiism as ziyarah. Ziyarah is known popularly among Muslims to visit. You can visit the grave, pray for the dead. But for Shiite, it actually means just more than just visiting. Because for 24 hours, there are some shrines, in fact, in Shiite communities in Iran, like Mashhad and Qum. People spend their day and night there praying to seek intercession, to seek intervention in their spiritual lives. And so it came to an extent, even in Iran, the government found it difficult when the health minister actually announced that Muslims are not supposed to, all shrines should be closed. It was actually a very big problem. And some clerics, in fact, had to actually condemn the president for actually uttering such statements. In Ghana, we had us. We do the Arba'in, we do the Ashura, but for some time, we even do the Ziyarah when the opportunity avails itself. But since there was a lockdown, for our own safety, we were not able to do it. And we actually found a way to be able to navigate through that. And generally speaking, all my colleagues have spoken on the Hajj. Hajj in particular is a necessity. And it has a compulsion in Islam, that is when there is a capability. But when we come to the jurisprudential aspect, especially the observance, when you have arrived at the stage of capability as a Muslim, it means you have the means to perform it. And then you carelessly sit down and that opportunity passes away. There's a penalty. So what do we say in the case of somebody who had the opportunity during the time of COVID and he couldn't go? So we need to look at new areas of ijtihad to be able to see how do we classify such person. Are we going to say that person should pay a penalty, or are we just going to say because of COVID, the issue should be waived out? No, we need to look into certain texts of the tradition again to be able to come out with valid explanation for such people. And coming back to Eid, I think my Sheikh Amiyah spoke about Eid as well as my sister, which happened to be one of the largest, one of the congregational aspects of the Muslim life, because they have to meet there, they have to socialize, they have to show some, human relationship with one another. But as he explained there, I won't like to go into the detail. All these things were impeded, and all these things affected Muslims greatly. But for a Shia Muslim, how actually do we think he was able to navigate through it? A Shia Muslim is just like any other Muslim. We are Muslim, we all belong to the same Allah. And it is just a matter of trying to adjust ourselves from what is normal to abnormal. And like my sister says, Sister Rafatu, she had mentioned so many places in the Quran. She has given reference, for which I had some of these references, to actually support that there are cases for which when a Muslim is actually facing certain problem, situational issue, he can adjust to those problems. Jurisprudentially is allowed. But we have to ask ourselves, like our sister just stated, what are some of the resources just apart from just the Quran? Is it just the Quran we are going to rely upon, or the tradition of the Prophet to be able to showcase that these things actually exist in Islam? I don't think so. Because there are times as Muslims, we look through the Quran, we look through the Sunnah of the Prophet, that is his saying, his actions, and his tacit approval. We fail to find explanation to certain new happenings in our communities. And so if we can't find that through consensus building, as well as analogical deduction, then we have to look through ijtihad. Because every Muslim, as far as the Sharia is concerned, we have got two duties. Either you are doing ijtihad as a human being that is trying to strive to extract law in Islam to be able to work with, or you are copying, or you are following, or you are mimicking. So these are the two things. Either you are copying somebody's law, or you are trying to establish a law. So if you are not doing one, it means you should be doing the other. So in our present situation, does COVID fall under that, especially when it comes to some of the protocols? The protocols, some are so many, and we just have to accept them, because some of the impediments to some of the protocol actually came and intercepted how to do it. The common things among Muslims is salam, greetings. And these greetings are normally showcased by shaking hands. Muslim goes to shake hands. And we are so used to that. Hugging each other, we are so used to that. Pegging, we are so used to that. And so with the coming of COVID, it becomes so strange for some Muslims if they want to come towards you and say, oh, my brother or sister, let's leave it like that. We are not in normal time. Some actually don't understand that we are not in normal time. And so we have to actually try as much as Muslims to look through other areas to know that Islam has got other doors for us to actually seek through, by not just focusing on the Quran. And somebody will say, I didn't see it clearly written in the Quran. The resources are not clear. For instance, when my sister said, the Quran says, "Wala tulqu bi aydikum ila tahluka," that do not place your hand in things that will cause your distraction. Definitely, we have an obligation. If I see my brother going wrong, and I know that I'm supposed to correct him, it's part of those protocols that we are supposed to also observe. So in Islam, protocols have been there, but as situation arrived, and that is even how the revelation of the Quran came. The Quran didn't just come in bulk. It comes to solve situation. It comes to explain situation, or when there are demands for certain things to be explained, or for certain issues to be carried out. That's why the Quran came down gradually. And so as one of the ways for which the resources we can use is the resources in the Quran, for which we call bidding good and then forbidding evil. We normally call it Amr bil Maruf or Nahi anil Munkar. This is one of the best way to actually help our community as far as COVID is concerned. So our ulamas were very awake, and they were able to alert us to actually, sensitize and disseminate that message of bidding good and then forbidding evil, such that if you see your colleague not doing the right thing, especially when it has to do with the protocols, you have to advise him or her, because at the end of the day, he or she will come back into your midst and you will be infected. And apart from that, are we actually supposed to rethink about the whole issue of the law in Islam, or we are just supposed to just relax? Because like my sister said, some people actually don't even believe that the COVID actually is a sickness or it exists. They just think that it was something that was created by somebody, or it is a punishment by Allah. It is normal during this type of situation, you hear all type of narrations from individuals. So there's a need, as far as I'm concerned, for a greater ijtihad for every one of us, from our scholars and even people who are non-scholars. They should ask questions, because the Quran has mandated Muslims, ask those who know if you don't know. And so if you don't know certain things, don't say it doesn't exist in the Quran, or it's not in Islam, because the Quran has come to make everything clear for all of us. If you have no idea, it is better to ask, and then those who know will actually educate you on that. And I think one of the rethinking ideas will be to consensus building. This is not the time for Muslims to start struggling theologically as to I'm a Shiite, I'm a Sunni, I'm a this. No, it is a time for us to build consensus, to come together as brothers and sisters in Islam, to be able to help one another, because it's a collective responsibility. In Islam, the responsibilities are, as far as the Sharia is concerned, are divided into 5. And one of those 5, we call it the wajib. The wajib actually is compulsion or obligation. But within that obligation, we have other obligations, which can be a personal obligation endowed upon you by Allah to carry it out alone, or a collective one. So we have that collective obligation in Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi al Munkar. If you see somebody going contrary to something that will bring harm to the society, try as much as possible to guide the person towards the right path. And so I will not actually want to take much of the time because already my colleagues have said a lot. But looking from where the Shia stand, we are not so different as far as other Muslims are concerned. Just that the type of reference point and then the type of observances that we carry out, we had a lot of challenges, I can say, more than any other Muslim, because we have so many attachments to those observances. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'll be happy to always be there when called upon. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Kuyate, for your wonderful submission. Let me also remind all of us that we are live on Facebook. And those on Facebook, if you have any question, please, you can send it to us, and we will let our distinguished speakers respond to them. Yeah. But again, before we open for comment and question, the issue of leadership, came to play when the pandemic was so affecting us as a community. And like Professor Rafa said, it also happened in Ghana that sometimes we had to resort to the politicians to ensure that people actually obey certain protocols, like not going to the mosque, because some of our people are not listening to our leaders. And so I saw some crisis, affecting leadership and fellowship, or fellowship, because our leaders will say, and some didn't listen to them, like Professor Rafa said. It also happened in Ghana. And so I think even coherent leadership and how people, follow their leaders in Ghana came to play when this pandemic and these restrictions were applied. And so, there were many new things that came to us, that affected the community. I wouldn't go much. I want to now open the gate for comments and questions. It could be comment or question.
I just want to ask the Dr. Rafatu if because she said there are in Islam there is the belief that healing every disease could be healed except old age. With in her assertion, many Muslims are seeking kind of a divine healing outside of the vaccination, more than seeking maybe Western type of medicine.
The Prophet said it, but again, it doesn't mean that you need to rely, only on spiritual healing, because even the what do you call the orthodox medicine is also part from the ijtihad, like Brother Kuyate said, ijtihad that we need to do. But I think when she come back, we'll allow her to expatiate further. Let me look at the questions. Let me go to the top from Yakubu Habila. Does the use of alcohol-based sanitizer invalidate ablution? Somebody is asking whether there's the use of alcohol. Does this actually invalidate alcohol-based sanitizer? Does it invalidate ablution?
Oh, not at all. Because in Islam, we've got laws on alcohol itself. The alcohol that is normally, we have different basic type of alcohol. Even the perfume we use has got some alcohol in it. So we cannot say we will not use perfume before that there are alcohol. The only alcohol for which there are prohibitions to us is the one that is consumed by the individual. But anyone that is being transformed from one stage to the next, like the sanitizer, it has lost that property of consumption. So that's why you don't see anybody drinking the sanitizer. If it can be drunk, it means definitely it is the same as the one we are using to wash our hands. But in Islam, we don't. It doesn't actually invalidate any aspect of our ablution.
Very good. There's this question: what provisions in the Hadith encourage prayers to avert the pandemic?
I don't know whether the person actually means averting the pandemic, says that you will not get the pandemic. I don't know whether that's the understanding of this person.
Yeah, I think it's talking about averting the pandemic. Is there anything the prayers we could do to say, Allah, take this away from us?
There is prayer for pandemic and for all other diseases that Muslims are expected to give, and Muslim and scholars have been giving those fatwa over the social media, and inshallah will get the prayer for us and then relate to us. But there is special prayer, but that does not mean that one should not look for medicine. This is what I want to keep on emphasizing. In as much as we pray to God, we are expected to also take medication, because medication is allowed and is highly encouraged. But there is special prayer. But even if you read any verse of the Quran with the intention that God should cure you for a certain disease, God, by the grace of God, will certainly do that. We have seen that Surah Al-Fatiha has also always been recited for so many diseases, but especially for pandemic. Just like I said, there is a special prayer in Islam, and I will get it back.
Very good. Sheikh Kuyate, if you can,
yes,
you can finish your
yes, what I was actually saying, they are special prayers, but these prayers have their own place of work. You might have all the prayers in the world to actually avert pandemic if you are not able to look at the condition from your own side, because Allah says, "Ku anfusakum wa ahalikum nara." So first, protect yourself and your family or your community from anything that is, evil or bad. That is a fire. And so if you are having this prayer and at the same time you don't observe the rules of what it takes to bring pandemic into your community, definitely you will have nothing to blame God about. So that's just what there are prayers for that. But when the pandemic is there are more prayers, like she's saying. There are various applications, there are salawat to do, but it has to start with you. You have to first protect yourself before you seek Allah. You ask Allah for whatever prayer you want. If you ask for prayer, you do the prayer and you do the wrong thing, the prayer will not be answered.
Very good. So there's this another question. The first two presenters both mentioned that Allah is the one who causes disease or creates diseases. This seems particularly troubling. Particularly troubling theologically, and potentially present an obstacle to those seeking to control, a pandemic. How do Muslim scholars negotiate this challenge?
Before I answer the question, please permit me to give you the prayer for the pandemic, which Muslims are encouraged to read or to recite every time. And that prayer says, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-barasi wal jununi wal juzami wa min sayyi al-asqam. And then it means, oh Allah, I seek your refuge from leprosy, insanity, mutilation, and from all serious illness. Of course, pandemic or COVID-19 is one of the serious illness we are faced with, and scholars are observing that Muslims should always recite it as a precaution or as a way of getting healed on this what is it called, the pandemic. Then the question on the whether
Allah causes diseases, yeah.
Yes, Allah created. Actually, to Muslims, there is no conflict as far as creation of sickness. What we mean by creation of sickness is that, in Islam, there is what we call known as principles of faith. The 6 articles of faith, one of the 6 articles of faith talks about destiny or qadar. And under that concept of predestination, it means that Allah has no foreknowledge on anything that will happen to one or to the entire world, because Muslims believe that God, Allah, created the entire world. So whatever will happen on this earth, Allah is aware of it. That is what it means by creation. So it means that whatever will happen with the foreknowledge of Allah and the consent of Allah. Otherwise, such thing will not occur. So it is expected that every Muslim should have that belief. It does not matter whether the pandemic or the virus is created in the laboratory, as is being said, whether it is created in the house or somebody produces it. What it means here is that whoever does it, he is a servant of God. God created him. God gave him the ability and the power to do that. So including the creator, whoever does it, it's still within the concept of God. Otherwise, he wouldn't have succeeded. So this is just about belief system, that believe that whatever happens, it happens with the knowledge of God and the consent of God. And that is what it means by the God created. I don't know whether I have answered the question. So that is what it means by God created the virus. And that does not mean that whether it happens that one should not also look for medication. We kept on emphasizing that God said there are all these diseases. He has foreknowledge about them and he has provided cure for them. What is expected of a Muslim is to go and seek for that cure so that he can get it off. But even where he didn't get, just like the pandemic, I have mentioned in one of the traditions, the prophet said, if he patiently and he is patient, he stayed where he is, and then if eventually he died after every effort, he could not make it, he still died in the process, he's still going to be rewarded like a martyr. So this is what we understand by this issue of a belief system or the issue of God creating a disease. It is not that God created, but having foreknowledge about it and the consent of God. Thank you.
Very good. Sheikh Piate, any addition to that?
Well, if I might digress a bit, because the question asked by my brother has some theological elements. If I can understand clearly, I can't see the question now, but I saw some theological elements. He said this seems particularly troubling theologically, and potentially present an obstacle to those seeking to control a pandemic. How do Muslim scholars negotiate this? So there is that theological aspect of it. And the issue has to do with, does Allah create disease? Does Allah create, the whole issue has, let's say basically is that, does Allah create human actions? Because this is a big controversy among schools of thought. Like I say, I'll have to digress a bit from my sister's point of view. But it's not every Muslim in the world that actually believes in the statement of the predestination. So many Muslims have different ideas as to what that predestination means. I think this question has a long way to actually merge into that, because some actually think that the predestination here, or predeterminism, it means Allah is responsible for human action. So the pandemic, invariably, Allah has created it. And so if Allah has created a pandemic, and then so many people have died out of the pandemic, where lies the personality or the character of God in the whole narration of the disease itself? Some says humans are responsible for their own actions and not God. So all these things is a whole lot of discussion, if I say I'm coming, because it's a discussion in scholastic theology. So that's the only little aspect. Predeterminism, scholars have got different view about it. Even schools of thought have got different view about it. If you come to the Mu'tazila, they don't believe in predeterminism. The Mu'tazila schools don't. It's only the Ash'ari that place effort on predeterminism, and they are supported by the Ahlul Hadith. And so that concept, maybe we should have a better time to explain it out.
Okay, so I think I'll take the last question now regarding vaccination. So Professor Rafa, do Muslims take vaccination?
Every Muslim.
Should we engage in vaccination vaccines?
Okay, you know, the issue of vaccination also has become a controversy among Muslims. Actually, the vaccination in Nigeria here, there has been move by the government to introduce the vaccination, and some Muslims are of the opinion they have different perception about the vaccination, especially that it has to do with the DNA of the people and so on and so forth. But in any case, what the scholars kept on saying is that we should allow the experts. All of us are not medical practitioners, and we should allow the experts to look into the issue and come up with a solution or a verdict that will be applicable to all the people, whether you are a Muslim or not. And again, some scholars also are of the view that the government, just like I have said, within the Islamic palace, they are responsible to take care of the lives of its citizenry. And no government would want to bring anything that would destroy the citizens' life, because without the citizens, the government will not exist. And so what scholars are saying, that we should have confidence in our government, and then we should be able to encourage and support them, so that whatever they should be able to do, as far as the vaccine is concerned, we should give them all the necessary support. And again, we have the Muslim practitioners. Debate has been going on, and on the issue of vaccine. They are also looking into that. And we are also encouraging our brethren to have confidence on our Muslim practitioners and all the health workers, because they are there to save life. But there is no doubt that there is, doubt about the vaccine. But the vaccine vaccination in Nigeria has not commenced fully. But this is just some, views surrounding the vaccine. But now, notwithstanding, this is also a normal doubt. I could remember, if you could remember, during the issue of the polio, some Muslims have doubt on the polio vaccine, issue of malaria, cholera, and so on and so forth. But in any case, my own candid opinion is that let us allow the practitioners who are in that field to come up with a viable solution. And we believe that they are not going to, disappoint the people, not only all the people, so that they should be able to do their work better. And then they should also cooperate with the Muslim practitioners, because the health workers include both Muslims and non-Muslims. Of course, they should work together towards seeing the actualization of the right vaccine that will be applicable, or that will be, applied to those who are to the people. This is just what I want to say on the vaccine. Thank you.
Very good. On the vaccine, Sheikh Kuyate.
Yes, I think I saw the line of my sister and mother, and I think it's in the right direction. At least people should have confidence in their leadership, because if we lose confidence in our leaders, there will be no nation. Since we have given them the mandate to actually lead us, it means we have to have that confidence that they will lead us in the right way possible. If we are not satisfied with certain issues, we have leaders among the religious group. We can meet them, especially as religious practitioners, as schools of thought. We can meet our religious leaders and then communicate with them, so that they can go get the knowledge, bring it back to us, and then just for us to be certain, because even in the Sharia, we have something known as ihtiyat. So there's always a precaution. Maybe I think some people are just cautious. They just want to be cautious about the way the news about the vaccine is going. But the vaccine actually will go a long way to help the nation, to help the Muslim community, and to help the Ummah at large. So I support my sister in that light. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much. We'll wind up, but before we go, I think we'll give some people who are hidden behind the camera to just say hello to us, introduce themselves. But I want to go to Professor Azuma for your comment before we give it to the others to also introduce themselves, and we wrap up. Professor Azuma, if you are there.
Of course, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for ably steering this fascinating conversation. And also to our panelists, what a conversation. This was so enlightening and so insightful. I was just really enjoying the last bit of the theological discussion on whether Allah is the one who creates diseases or not, and the whole question of the Mutazila and the theology of determinism. And it's fascinating. We have very similar debates in Christianity also. And for me, these are very, very deep conversations that we need to make more time for. Yeah. But the whole question of the experience of the Muslim experience of COVID and Islam being a very communal religion, and our brother from the Shia tradition emphasized that, and how it impacted religious observances. But Islam is that kind of religion that also has a lot of nuances. It provides ways to navigate all these difficult situations. And it's so important for us to know that in all of these, there's always a way provided within the Islamic teaching, so that there is no need for any fundamentalism, that this is the only thing. If we don't do this, then this will happen to us. There is always a way out. That also came across to me very powerfully. So thank you all so much. And as the moderator said, if you feel comfortable, unmute, put on your camera, and just mention your name and where you are joining us from. That would be wonderful to know. And then the moderator will have the last word.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah, so the door is open for just a short introduction. You mentioned your name and where you were joining from. That would be great. Okay, I can see somebody here. Yes, I could see somebody. Is it Yakubu?
Yes, please. Yes.
Please introduce yourself and
yeah, my name is Habila Yakubu. I'm joining from Jamasi in the Ashanti region.
Oh, great! Thank you. Thank you.
And I also hold a first degree in religious studies and an MPhil from KUST, the same area.
Okay,
thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
And Dr. Samwini was my supervisor. Dr. Bishop Samwini.
Okay. Oh, great.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Very good.
And Kuyate was also my lecturer.
I see.
Mr. Kuyate was also my lecturer.
Very good. Good. Any other who want to?
Well, I want to present myself.
Good.
I'm Reverend Father Simon Onoja, a Catholic priest teaching in Ikma Ibad, Abidjan. So good. I'm joining the conversation from Ivory Coast.
Reverend Father, we are grateful for joining us. We are most grateful.
Yeah.
Any other?
I'm also Peter, joining from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, USA.
Hello.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Peter, you're welcome. Good. Thank you for joining. We are most grateful.
Hello.
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 Yes, please.
I'm Wasilat Abdul Salam. I'm joining from Nigeria.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wasila. Thank you so much for being part of this wonderful discussion.
Thank you. And I think we continue to join. It's very interesting and it's okay.
Very good.
May God help us through. We are moving on.
Amen. Amen. Inshallah. Inshallah.
Can I introduce myself?
We are moving on.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. I'm Ted.
Go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead. Ted, please go ahead.
Okay. I'm Ted, and I'm studying in Korea. I've been following Lami Sani's writings, and I'm very interested also in Islam. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much, Ted.
I'm joining from
all the best in Korea.
Yeah.
Good. I saw Jonathan, right?
Yeah. I just want to say thank you to the wonderful presenters. I really appreciated it. I'm joining you from the United States.
Good.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good to see you.
For being.
Yes,
being
John, nice to see you too.
Good. Any other hidden there? Any other person hidden? Okay.
We have.
My name is Steve. Hello, hi, I'm Steve Muneza, joining you from Durham, UK.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much for joining, being part of this.
We also have Kelefa Sane, the son of the late Professor Sane. And also Sandra, the widow, was with us also and had to sign out. So Kelefa is still here. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. I think, yes, on this note, I will say I've enjoyed myself listening to these great scholars. And I think that they've shared their religious experiences, with us as far as COVID-19 and its challenges are concerned. And I think as part of the world, the world or the earth, the Muslim community also face the brunt of COVID-19. And I'm happy the way they've shared their experiences with us. And I think it cut across. And I'm sure this happened to everybody, every Muslim everywhere in the world, as it happened to our brothers and sisters in Christianity and other religions. And so this conversation must continue from another perspective. And I think people will want to still have more of this, but for lack of time, we can't continue to hold it. So TSI, let's see whether we can have more of this, that shares issues, that share, the experiences of, various religious practitioners, so that we can learn from one another. On this note, I want to thank so much, the speakers, Sheikh Harimia Shoaib, Professor Rafatu Abdul Hamid, and my brother Mustafa Kuyate for this wonderful submissions. And I also want to thank all our participants. Everybody who was here was our special guest. Without you, we couldn't have done this. And again, finally, I want to thank the Sana Institute and their partners for bringing us this important conversation. On this note, I want to thank all of you and say goodbye. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We look forward to next month. We do a topic on faith healing, mental health, and prayer camps in Africa.
Right.
Faith healing, mental health, and prayer camps in Africa.
Wow.
So be on the watch out for that information.
All right.
Thank you all, and
thank you all. Thank you all.
All the best.
All the
Baraka.
best.
Salam.
Salam. Bye bye.